One, world wars have been set off by an assassination. We're sitting in a tinderbox. We're living on the edge, and in that environment, former candidate for president, Hillary Clinton, feeds the fire. She continues to incite attacks after the second assassination attempt against Donald Trump. 2, Will versus the experts. Up. I'm smoking the experts. Fantasy football in the Will Cain Show lead. Down. Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns up. Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys down. 3, lifestyle expert, best-selling author, life coach, Tony Robbins joins us to talk about a new film that he's the executive producer on, City of Dreams. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page, and always on demand, wherever you get your audio entertainment, Apple, Spotify, or at Fox News Podcast. We've got a big show today. We're going to be joined by Tony Robbins and the director of a new film, City of Dreams, to talk about the thriller that puts into story form the missing children in the United States of America, slave labor, child labor, all brought to you in an action-packed new movie entitled City of Dreams. We're going to talk to Tony Robbins about that today here on The Will Cain Show. I am hot. I'm hot two-a-days. I'm hot, young establishment James. I know we've got a trainee today back in New York joining us here on The Will Cain Show, which puts us into some technical thin ice, but two-a-days about to go on his wedding and honeymoon vacation. And who is this now joining us in the New York control room of the Will Cain Show? Who is our new member of the militia, at least for the next week or two?
This is Justin. He'll be filling in for me as I am out to get married, which is crazy.
It is crazy. And it is awesome.
And stressful.
Joining the world of the married. Dan two-a-days here on the Will Cain Show. Justin, welcome. Good luck. This is a little introduction. You are immediately on mic and you are immediately on camera, so be prepared. Buckle up. I'm smoking them, boys, at least when it comes to Will versus the experts. Down goes Danny Cannell. Trey Wallace of Outkick and McLovin, formerly of the Dan Patrick Show, Andrew Perloff, all have gone down to Will Cain in Will versus the experts. I'm hot. I'm above 500. You're making money with Will Cain.
I'm going to start following whatever you say, I think, to make some money.
I think you should.
I was going against you this whole time.
On the other hand, it's not so good in the Will Cain Show. Friends of the Will Cain Show Fantasy Football League. We're going to update you on that a little bit later on the show. Because, I mean, no one cares about your fantasy team, but you might at least have some element of curiosity about who's doing well. Yeah. We've got congressmen. We've got legal experts. We've got former Major League Baseball stars, all in the Friends of the Will Cain Show League. So who's at the top? We'll bring that to you a little bit later. And I guess I need to face some accountability as the Cowboys were absolutely smoked by the New Orleans Saints. But as I said, the Texas Longhorns' second team could be a top 25 team. That's proven once again by the stud Arch Manning. That plus Tony Robbins coming up in just a little bit here on the Will Cain Show. But let's get to this. Let's get the razor's edge we're living on. Let's get to the way America has responded to the second assassination attempt of Donald Trump with story number 1. I want to bring you back into the studios in Dallas, Texas of the Will Cain Show. If you're listening on radio, I want to put this up. I think that what we're looking at here is beyond, at this point, media malpractice, media bias, media agenda. I don't even know if we're beyond media propaganda. I don't know where we are. And I'm very sensitive to the fact that people within media like to talk about media. But I don't think we can under-index the power of mass formation psychosis. That is, if you can create a hysteria, in the famed words of the media, which you'll hear in just a moment, a narrative, then you can frame the way many people in this country think. And if you can control the way they think, then you can control power. You can control America. We're just a couple of days removed from the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. And this is the way that story is reported on today at CNN. The main headline at CNN reads as follows: Trump pivots to more incendiary claims. Trump pivots to more incendiary claims. So many words in there carry so much meaning. More, I think, not the least, among those choices of words. The more is to imply that Trump traffics in incendiary claims. And this being a story about an attempted assassination feeds into the type of thing we talked about yesterday here on the Will Cain Show, which came from the mouths of, for example, and I'm using air quotations here, the most distinguished of voices in the most mainstream of mainstream media, Lester Holt. The idea being, Trump's asking for it. He's created an environment of violent rhetoric, and now he's reaping the whirlwind of that violence. And with the headline, Trump pivots to more incendiary claims, the subtext, the translation, should read, why do you keep making us try to kill you? Inside the article, it reads as follows. Trump told Fox News Digital, in an interview, by the way, with Fox News Digital reporter Brooke Singman, who joined us yesterday here on the Will Cain Show. Trump told Fox News Digital on Monday, without evidence, that the alleged would-be shooter believed the rhetoric of Biden and Harris, and he acted on it. Trump said it is called the enemy from within, using a familiar trope of totalitarian leaders. Let's break that down for a moment, word by word. Trump told Fox Digital without evidence that the alleged would-be shooter believed the rhetoric of Biden and Harris. Without evidence is their latest verbal tick viral mass formation psychosis. It's almost laughable. But if you pay attention, you'll start seeing it repeated over and over. It began with the questions over the 2020 election returns. Without evidence. It's a qualifier that you can throw in to undercut something that someone says, regardless of its veracity. Of course, there is evidence that alleged shooter Ryan Wesley Ruth was motivated by claims when he's tweeting out things like democracy on the ballot, which is a previous viral word tick common to the left and mass formation psychosis. It's flat false that Trump could believe this without evidence. It's laughable, and you know that. Anyone that pays attention would know that. There is ample evidence. Now, there needs to be an investigation. There need to be interviews. This man is alive, and we'll be able to find out exactly, to the extent that he shares or we have good interrogations, he shares what motivated Ryan Wesley Ruth. But that he believed the rhetoric of Biden and Harris is not only plausible, I would argue it's probable. In his own words, he's echoed the words of Biden and Harris. And as if enough laugh lines had not been accomplished yet, CNN writes, it's called the enemy from within, quoting Donald Trump, using a familiar trope of a totalitarian leader. A familiar trope of a totalitarian leader. That's the objective reporting of CNN on Donald Trump commenting on an attempted assassination. Once again, he's trafficking in tropes. Once again, he is echoing totalitarians. There is no end to this appetite, to this, not bias, not agenda, whatever exists further down the spectrum from even propaganda. This is an insane response to someone trying to take the life of a former president. It's only trumped by Hillary Clinton, one day after the attempt on the life of Donald Trump, said this on MSNBC.
I don't understand why it's so difficult for the press to have a consistent narrative about how dangerous Trump is. The late, great journalist Harry Evans, one time said that, journalists should, really try to achieve objectivity. And by that, he said, I mean, they should cover the object. Well, the object in this case is Donald Trump. his demagoguery, his danger to our country and the world, and stick with it.
For the record, I don't know, call me a rube, I don't know Harry Evans, but that's not the understanding of objectivity that I am led to believe, that you cover the object. It's that you approach a subject without, or to do your best without bias, that you strive for an impartial covering of the facts of a case, not that you focus on an object. And listen to the words of Hillary Clinton. She reduces Donald Trump, by the way. She dehumanizes him by reducing him to an object. No, seriously, that's a furtherance of the dehumanization of Donald Trump, and he has been thoroughly dehumanized. You have to, regardless if you disagree. Chris Cuomo, formerly of CNN, had a rant where he is apologizing to Donald Trump for the climate that has led to 2 attempts on his life. And in an act of humanity, Cuomo apologizes and understands, regardless of your disagreements, we're talking about physical violence. And here is Hillary Clinton, perhaps one of the most vile people in the history of American politics, reducing Donald Trump to an object and then imploring the public, continue a narrative. A narrative is a story. Continue the story that Donald Trump is a danger to America and the world, and he is a demagogue. She double, triple, quadruples down on the rhetoric that has created this mass formation psychosis that, there's plenty of evidence to suggest motivated a second attempt on the life of Donald Trump. This is beyond the pale. This is not political hackery. This is dangerous stuff. You know, there are many things that led to the advent of World War I. I mean, you're talking about, nation states, treaties and alliances, pacts. But many people point to at least the flashbang inside the tinderbox of the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand of the Austro-Hungarian Empire by Serbian separatists, which led to the domino effect of many of these pacts. Austria-Hungary versus Serbia, Serbia in league with Russia, and so forth. And then you start setting off the chain of reactions where it leads to World War I. But even if we don't go to the historical example of World War I, political assassination is incredibly dangerous for a society. And it can't be hand-waved, much less fanned the flames of this fire. After the first assassination attempt, there was at least a feigning for about a week of, this is not good. This is not good. This time, no, none. We gave you the tweet yesterday of Rachel Vindman, wife of Alexander Vindman, quote unquote, star witness in the impeachment of Donald Trump, saying no ears were harmed, move about your Sunday. There was dismissal, mockery, a readiness to move on from the coverage to talk about Springfield, Ohio, and an immediate equivocation. The language of Donald Trump. The rhetoric of Donald Trump, none of which you can point to as violent, that has created this atmosphere. It's created this atmosphere that has led to, Donald Trump attempted an attempt on the life of Donald Trump. This, I'm sensitive about over-focusing on the media, but, it's not just a media story. There's Hillary Clinton. It's a story of politicians who've created this environment in America. Here, this David Sachs, former PayPal founder, Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur, he tweeted this out yesterday. I thought it was fascinating. He said, this is a seminal moment in American history. This we will look back on and go, wow, is this not what led us into this tinderbox, waiting for someone like a Ryan Wesley Routh or a Butler, Pennsylvania to set us off? The tweet from Joe Biden read, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. Not just Donald Trump, but anybody who supports him. Did you guys see Howard Stern say he hates anyone who would vote for Donald Trump, and he doesn't want them listening to the Howard Stern show? I think they stopped listening a long time ago. But this quote from Joe Biden, it originates from the speech he gave, the famous speech he gave with the red background, and there's a photo. Joe Biden put this out in his tweet of him that night. Red background, fists raised, mouth open in talk about images of totalitarianism, a scream, an anger in his face, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. I do think Sachs is right. I think that is a moment that we could look back on and say, this is the moment where we went. This is the moment where we went into the powder keg. You keep flirting. You keep flirting with this. It's not even a flirt at this point. It's an open invitation. It's an open invitation to say, hey, he's not a human. Hey, he's a demagogue. His supporters are hateful. Hey, it's a threat to our soul. It's a threat to democracy. And why aren't you inviting Ryan Wesley Routh to end the life of Donald Trump? Let's break all this down and talk about this with a former chief of staff for the acting Secretary of Defense as well. He is he worked inside the National Security Agency as well, the National Security part of the executive branch. He's senior campaign advisor as well to Donald Trump. Let's break this all down in just a moment with Kash Patel here on The Will Cain Show.
It's time to take the quiz.
5 questions, 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
History, pop culture, science, sports, civics. How much do you know? Let's find out.
Who was the first person to walk on the moon?
Jackson or something?
Neil Armstrong.
Take the quiz every weekday at thequiz.fox and then listen to the quiz podcast to find out how you did.
Play, share, and of course, listen to the quiz right now at thequiz.fox.
We're bringing forecasting grit to the gridiron. Fox Weather is storming the field with the risk of weather impact on the hottest NFL matchups all season long, delivering unmatched insight from the leader in weather news and how the forecast could affect your favorite players. We are taking you right into the end zone with Fox Weather's exclusive weather forecasting technology and the risk of weather impact for every single game of the regular season. Listen to Storming the Field every Friday on FoxNewsPodcasts.com. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey there, it's me, Kennedy. Make sure to check out my podcast, Kennedy Saves the World. It is 5 days a week. Every week, we check in with Jimmy Fallon, bring in authors for the book club, and even treat some of your favorite Fox personalities to a very special happy hour. Download and listen at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Kennedy Saves the World. America's listening to Fox News.
Tony Robbins coming up in just a moment here on The Will Cain Show. Big interview. You want to stick around to listen to Tony Robbins and director Mo Ramchandani of the new movie City of Dreams. It's The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Hey, just hit subscribe at Apple or Spotify and you can listen to us whenever you like. It'll show up right in your stream, right in your feed, and you'll get The Will Cain Show 5 days a week, including the Friday Cain on Sports exclusive edition of The Will Cain Show. You can also subscribe on YouTube. We are expecting Kash Patel. He's booked for today, former National Security Council staffer, chief of staff to the acting Secretary of Defense and a senior advisor to Donald Trump. We're waiting to see if we're going to get Kash Patel here in just a moment on The Will Cain Show. But speaking of the Cain on Sports edition of the show, last week we had Danny Cannell, former Florida State quarterback, jump into the show. He's the third in the Will versus Experts edition. And what were the results? Now, for the third week in a row, what was my result in picking 5 games versus Danny's result?
Drum roll. So you are, Will, 8-7, and the Experts are 5-10.
And this past weekend, both Danny and I went 3-2. The
Correct.
first weekend, the Experts had an above 500 record. The first two, Trey Wallace and Andrew Perloff, going 1-4. Danny and I didn't pick the same games. In fact, I think we only had one game in common.
Yep, exactly.
And yet we both came out 3-2. So Danny did better than the other Experts. The Experts having a lot of trouble with me. I'm trouble. So I'll make those picks again on Friday, and you can ride along with me. I wouldn't say I'm killing it so much you should bet on a reversion to the mean. You know, if I were like, you know, we've played 15 games. If I were 12-3, you might be like, Will's going to revert to the mean. Let's bet against Will. But, you know, where I am, that's just solidly hitting singles and making money every week. It's just smart picks. As is, by the way, my support of the Texas Longhorns. It's looking good in Texas. Quinn Ewers got hurt, the Texas quarterback, and that's bad news. Good news is his backup, Arch Manning, comes in, and Arch absolutely lights it up. There is no quarterback controversy in Texas. There will not be a quarterback controversy, but it looks like they can play with their second-string quarterback and deserve a number 1 in the country ranking. I have been a part of this new Outkick the coverage, top 12 in college football pick'em. And as you can see, it includes people like Tim Brando, Lou Holtz, former LSU coach Les Miles, Clay Travis, and others. And you can see our picks. Mine, over here in the corner, I have, like many people now, the Texas Longhorns as your number 1 team in the country. I don't think that's homerism either. I think that's a deserved ranking. There's Will Cain's top 12 rankings. It reads as follows. Number 1, Texas. Number 2, Georgia. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Alabama. 5, Tennessee. 6, Ole Miss. 7, Oregon. I was impressed with Oregon. I bumped them up above others. 8, USC. Also impressed. Some good victories on their record. 9, Missouri. 10, Miami. 11, Penn State. And 12, Kansas State. That's my top 12 in college football.
Pretty good.
Arch will get to start this weekend against ULM. I expect that to go well for Arch Manning. So looking good. And James is an excited Texas fan as well. Right, James?
Yes, sir. They look good.
Suck up.
Real good.
I have a question for you, Will. Real quick about Notre Dame, because I am a Notre Dame fan. What do you think about the 66-7 win over Purdue? Does that, if they keep doing that, can they get in?
I mean, what are you talking about? Blowing everybody else out on your schedule after losing to
Correct.
NIU?
Yes. Yep.
Well, on these rankings, Lou Holtz. No, it's not Lou Holtz. It's Les Miles has Notre Dame at number 10.
Wow.
Which is, I mean, it's Les Miles. It's not just some random sports writer, you know. I don't know if he's not watching football or if he missed last weekend, but I don't know how Notre Dame could be in your top 12 now, and I don't know how Notre Dame ends up in the playoffs, to be honest. I think they are way, way behind the 8 ball. I don't see it. Speaking of, it's hard to see. Dallas Cowboys. It's really bad. I don't know how you go. What's the real Dallas Cowboys? You know, I don't know how you go from what they looked like in week 1 to what they looked like in week 2. I mean, the New Orleans Saints clearly are good. They've scored like 90 points in 2 weeks. But I don't know that you can just chalk this up to the Saints being good. This is some rough stuff for the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense looked horrific.
True. Dak throwing 2 interceptions, too, didn't help.
The NFC South might just be good.
Yep.
Atlanta Falcons with an incredible drive last night at the end of the game to beat the Eagles. That was some good stuff from Kirk Cousins. I watched that game. All I thought about the entirety of the game was, please run Bijan Robinson. Please let young Hoku kick field goals. Please throw it to Dante Smith, because all I thought about was fantasy. I have Dante Smith, the Philadelphia Eagles receiver, on every single one of my teams, and I need him to do well. I went 0-3 in fantasy football, 3 leagues.
I
lost 2 of those leagues. You have Devontae Smith as well? Yeah. Well, I lost 2 games by 3 points, except for in our league. That one's not going good for me. I don't know if I should show our standings.
Why not?
In the Friends of the Will Cain Show.
Are there any bad names in there?
Football league. I don't think there's any bad names. I don't. I mean,
names are all pretty standard.
Pete Egg says fantasy football name is Project 2025. So really know if everybody's going to be excited.
I tried
about
to
that,
guess.
but he's just poking a bear.
I tried to guess everyone's name based on what they picked for it without looking at their actual name, and I was wrong on a lot of them.
John Ashbrook of the Ruthless Podcast is Kamala's word salad. That's his.
That's good.
Fantasy football name.
That's good. What's Lord of the Plains for you?
Your top team. The Lord of the Plains. That's yeah. I need to work on my. I'm not good at fantasy football names. That is a play off Hell or High Water and Empire of the Sun. The Comanches were called the Lord of the Plains, Lords of the Plains, and I just thought it sounded badass. So I just wanted to stick with that. Andy McCarthy, Fox News legal analyst, your number one team, 2-0. They're doing really well. AJ Przinsky, former Major League Baseball star, also 2-0 up there. James and Pat, undefeated. Woo. And Congressman Byron Donalds is doing really well as well. I mean, his team's putting up some points, even if he's only 1-1. But yours truly is 0-2. 0-2. Tied for last with Tyrus, Bobby Burak, and John Ashbrook. So pretty rough for me in the Friends of Will Cain Show Fantasy Football League.
Checking out the scoreboard this week.
What?
I'm just seeing who's playing who.
What are you talking about?
Andy just kicked my butt.
Oh.
You have Byron Donalds this week.
I'm taking on the congressman?
Yeah, you should text him some trash talk.
We should get him on on Thursday.
We should
have him drop
Let's
in
do it.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll show up. It turns out Kash Patel will not show up. I don't know what happened on the booking or why he had to drop out. But we're not going to have Kash Patel, unfortunately, to respond to the climate around the second assassination attempt of Donald Trump. But here's what we will have in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break. There's a brand new movie out. Its executive producers are Vivek Ramaswamy and Tony Robbins. It is about child labor, slavery in modern America turned into the thriller of a movie. Tony Robbins is going to talk to us about his experience of actually going undercover and getting some of these kids back from chained to beds, and the financing of this new movie that for some reason, and you got to hear this from this director today, he's a former Democrat who's having a little bit of his eyes open because of the way his movie has been censored and poorly reviewed and uncovered. It's a hell of a movie. City of Dreams with Tony Robbins coming up next on The Will Cain Show.
The world of business moves fast. Stay on top of it with the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday. Fox Business reporters, anchors, and hosts will bring you beneath the stock market speculation and boardroom drama to tell you about the biggest business stories of today. Whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, Fox Business is invested in you.
Listen to the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com or wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
Streaming now on Fox Nation, a new season of The Real Hatfields and McCoys, Forever Feuding.
We're a moonshine family.
The longest-running American drama
Hatfields, I'm coming after the moonshine business.
returns to Fox Nation
My daddy taught me if somebody's hurting you till you kill them. That's a family tradition.
with all new episodes.
Show them what the Hatfields are made of. We have to shut them down. Never let McCoy outdo me. We'll see what happens at the end.
The Real Hatfields and McCoys, Forever Feuding, a new season streaming now on Fox Nation. Sign up at foxnation.com.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey, this is Trey Gowdy, host of the Trey Gowdy Podcast. Every Tuesday, you'll hear what's on my mind. Plus, every Thursday, there's a special bonus episode where we answer the questions that are on your mind. Make sure to spend your Tuesdays and Thursdays with Trey. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts. Hope to see you.
America's listening to Fox News.
World famous Tony Robbins coming up here in just a moment on The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. You can always subscribe on Apple or Spotify or on YouTube and hang out with us every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern time or on demand whenever you like. Fellas in New York, I don't want to make light of it because, who knows how mistakes are made, and, I take them seriously. But in the spirit of the way I like to do media, like I always say this on Fox and Friends, like I don't like perfect media because perfect is not a reflection of authenticity, of reality. So I like to live everything out loud on a show, pretty much almost everything. If something goes wrong on Fox and Friends, I don't want you to quickly cut away from it or something. I want you to zoom out and get it all in. So same thing here. So, okay, we'll have to figure out what went wrong with Kash Patel. I see Tinfoil Pat saying they confirmed this morning. They're saying they said they were out, Kash Patel's camp. As of early this morning, they weren't going to make it. Somewhere, some communication dropped, and we didn't end up with Kash Patel. And for that, I'm sorry to the audience because that was what I was expecting, and for many of you, that's what you were expecting. But in addition to figuring out how we're going to fix our behind-the-show mistakes, I think we're going to have some sort of accountability mechanism on air. And at some point, there's going to have to be a price to be paid, And at this point, I think, I don't know. I don't want a money jar, but...
like a swear jar?
I mean, no, it's going to be too easy. I want it to be worse than that. And I don't know, maybe you have to do the show shirtless.
Ooh.
Maybe,
not a punishment.
Jump into the we'll see about that.
Wow.
Because I promise you there, James, you're the leader in the clubhouse of most on-air punishments ready to be received. Whatever it is, you be prepared to deal with those slings and arrows.
Dunce hat.
And maybe I need your help, audience. YouTube, Facebook. Jump into the comment section. Hey, blank slate, brainstorming session, no bad answers. What should I do to try to crack the whip here and get some performance on the Will Cain Show? What needs to happen on air for us to all just see who made the mistake and who's going to pay the price?
I'm in.
I got my oldest son is on a soccer team now with a very aggro coach who says things like, "You lost me the game. It's your fault that goal went on. You lost the game." Called them Barbies. I think the implication is clear. Specifically said, "You are a Barbie." So maybe I need to be a little bit more like this coach, just like that. But he also made them run last night. Like they ran until they were on the edge. My son said I wasn't going to throw up, but I was going to pass out. Like I literally don't think I had one more wind sprint in me. So I don't know, something like that. We need the news equivalent of this punishment here on the Will Cain Show.
Okay, I like it.
We have a gym downstairs.
I always worked better with a hard coach, like someone really like riding me like that. So.
You said Dan Patrick was a hard coach.
Oh, yeah. Very much so. Won't get into it, but yes. In a good way. It was very
Comment
motivating.
section. Yeah, I mean, Can't all be nice guy all the time. Like Donald Trump says, sometimes somebody's got to get fired. And maybe that's what the comments will say under the Will Cain Show or YouTube or Facebook comments.
Be nice to us, watchers.
So, somewhere short of firing or calling somebody a Barbie, but somewhere north of it's all going to be okay. Right there, YouTube, Facebook, comment section. All right, we got a big interview now, though. World famous Tony Robbins and the director, Mo Ramchandani, of a brand new movie, City of Dreams, now joining us here on The Will Cain Show. All right, I'm joined by Mo Ramchandani and Tony Robbins now on The Will Cain Show. Tony Robbins, best-selling author, badass. Mo was just giving us the best attributions for Tony. Tony, what are they all? What should you're Mr. Everything, everybody knows, but also badass Tony Robbins.
No, just business and life strategist, and a philanthropist, and an author. I guess it's a lot of different things. I got 114 companies, so I do a lot of things.
Cool. And one of my heroes.
For the point of this conversation. And one of mine, Mo, executive producer of City of Dreams. And Mo Ramchandani is the writer and director of a brand new film, City of Dreams. Mo, I will start with you. So I've seen the trailer, and I actually want to start with the entertainment aspect of City of Dreams. It is heart-pulsing. It is exciting. I've seen Tony describe it as a thriller. And the reason I want to start here, Mo, is because sometimes I think message movies can keep an audience away if it doesn't hit entertainment. And what's clear to me, at least from the trailer, this is entertaining.
That's right. And look, that was the idea from the beginning. When I set out to make the movie, I always thought to myself, documentaries, they sort of preach to the converted, right? You're not going to go see a documentary about a subject matter that you're not already interested or already educated on. And what I wanted was, I'm originally from India. My family lives in London. I moved here 20 years ago to the United States. I'm an immigrant. And I said, I want a global reach for the film. I want the film to translate. And so the idea was to make a genre movie, just to show you from this boy's point of view what would happen rather than be a docudrama. And, initially people were like, well, is it a thriller? Is it a horror movie? And I'm like, well, it's the journey that a young boy takes when he's sold into slavery, and it embodies all of those things. It's a heroic thriller, like Tony says. Like, I think that's the best description of it that I've heard.
Tony, you've made this point in several interviews, and I think it's something I want to dig into today. Numbers are not a motive. People do not connect to numbers. And the three of us today can talk about, and we will, because it's important that 300,000 kids have gone missing, I believe, over the last decade or so. That illegal immigration and human trafficking and child slavery are all wrapped up one in the same. But numbers don't connect with people. So I know this isn't your first rodeo, Tony, as long with hundreds of companies, General Badass, working to get kids out of child slavery has been something big for you, though. And so maybe take me back, Tony, because it starts way before this movie. Why? Why of all the issues? And there's a lot of things, whatever it may be, cancer. This one really spoke to you of, I've got to devote some of my equity, what I am as a human being, towards this issue.
Well, there are a lot of things that matter to me. Feeding people is, I've had the privilege of feeding over 1 billion people through my partnership with Feeding America in the last 10 years. Because I got fed when I was a child. So things that you're personally affected by. But I was doing an event about 8 years ago, and it was during the event, it's a business event, and people are learning how to really do better in their business. And I'm talked about, let's set some goals for what you're going to do with this to better society, because no matter how much you get for yourself, it never makes you fulfilled, right? It's got to find something where that you're passionate about. And I had people share, and this woman got up crying and said, my best friend's daughter was abducted. They're still looking for her. One of her other friends, they actually found her daughter, and it just blew my mind. This is in America, and the person was shipped overseas. And she said the organization that saved one of her friend's family members, she wants to support them, and she wanted to save, she said, 100 lives. And I said, well, what if, right now we do something right now? I said, how much is it to save a child? And they said the organization they worked with was $3,500 for a child, to save a child's life. And I said, I'll put up $250,000 right now of matching funds. Let's see what we can raise. We raised $2 million in about 40 minutes, 35 minutes. And I then went out on a place in Haiti. They did massive makeup on me and scars. And I went undercover for 5 days with a group of people on a sting where we saved 37 children. It was the most evil thing I've ever seen in my life, to see a 10-year-old child tied to a bed doing tricks all day. But the most beautiful part was when they were freed. And so I got hooked. And so my wife and I have been responsible for funding about 51,000 children's rescues at this point, work with a bunch of different organizations. But it's one thing to just do it yourself. We need more people to know what's going on. So as you said, look, there's 12 million kids in the world that are in slavery right now. It's the most of any time in history. Now we have a larger population as well, but it's just unacceptable. People, when we did Sound of Freedom, it caught fire. And I was executive producer there as well. But it also showed overseas more. This is domestic. This is also not sexual slavery so much as just labor slavery, right? It's slave labor. So I thought this is something I think can bring it more down to home. And when you hear 10 or 11 million people coming across the border and we've lost 325,000 children that the government acknowledges, you say, my God, what's happened to them? Well, when it's that big, as you said, it's just too much. It's like war, it's too much. But when you follow one child's life, you connect, you associate, you feel. And the objective here is, if you think about what ended slavery in the United States, the single most powerful component was Uncle Tom's Cabin, right? Mary Beecher Stowe writes this book. She's a white woman. She lives in Cincinnati, Ohio in the 1850s. And she gets angry because two things happened. One, she lost her own child. And that tragedy made her feel for women who were slaves, whose kids were sold away. It just connected to her. And then a new law that required people in the North to send slaves back just made her angry. So she writes this book. It sells 3,000 copies back then in the first day, 300,000 copies in the first year, 1 million copies the next year. And this is back in the 1850s. And President Lincoln reads the book. This one woman was responsible for changing the narrative where people started saying enough of this. So I'm not suggesting this movie by itself will do that, but this is how you start it. You create the awareness. And when people start seeing what's really real, they won't put up for it. And that's part of what we hope. But as you said, you got to entertain them first. And this film, you know, maybe you can ask Mo about this, but Mo, as a young man, was influenced a bit by me, but he was also massively influenced by the movie Rocky. And I connected him with Sly, and Sly is one of the people who's blown away by this film, has promoted the film for us, right? But this is like a Rocky-like story, because this is a young man who fights back. And he not only frees himself, but he frees others. But while you're going through this incredible journey, emotional journey, a great movie experience, you're also at the end really called to say, hey, we can't settle for this. What can you do? Write your congressman. What can you do? There are organizations now, to give you an idea, well, I work with one called the Ricci Foundation. They use big data, they use AI, and they have gone into places like in Indonesia and some of the biggest cities. They've reduced this trafficking by 92% by tracking who are the kingpins and how does it work. And to give you an idea, they can save a child's life for $500 and then work with them afterwards to reintegrate them in society. So I have kids now that are donating $500. They save up their money to save a child's life. We all can do something, but the first step is awareness.
Hey, Mo, on the note of entertainment, you off camera to me a moment ago referenced Mel Gibson. Tony just brought up Sylvester Stallone. But tell me some of the stuff you have worked on in the past, Mo. Like you're a writer, director, Hollywood. What have you worked on before City of Dreams?
So City of Dreams is actually my first movie that I wrote and I directed. Before that, I was a producer. I worked on independent films. I was actually pretty unfulfilled. Like I worked on a lot of independent films. You know, I worked with Luke Wilson and Paul Rudd and Anne Hathaway and all these movies as a producer. But I was unfulfilled because I felt like the films I was working on was more for my career and money. And I thought to myself, if any of the greatest men that were alive today or women, they would be making movies because it's the fastest way to affect global consciousness. And I said, what I want to do is find a way not to make these preachy dramas, but to make entertaining commercial films that also have some kind of message so that they would inspire and empower people the way I was as a boy. I was a 12-year-old boy that was suicidal, that was bullied, and my neighbor brought over Rocky. And I watched that film, and when I saw Rocky get up in the 14th round after taking a beating, I thought to myself, why did my father not teach me that? Why did he not teach me never to give up? So for me, you know, as a kid growing up in Hong Kong, film was my religion. It's where Rocky, Braveheart, Star Wars, Rain Man, like these are the films that inspired me and shaped me as a human being. So I think there's a fine line between sort of entertainment and edutainment. And I think the best films do both. They entertain you, but they inspire and they empower as well. So
the best way for anyone watching or listening to get that non-numerical, sanitized vision of this issue of human slavery is to see City of Dreams right now. But I have the opportunity because I have you both here. And so I'm going to ask this of both of you because I know a little bit about both your experiences to tell me through your eyes. So Tony, you talk about when you went into Haiti and you saw the child handcuffed, chained to the bed. You know, I don't know if that's the only time you went on sort of undercover in a mission, but I'm just curious if you'd share what's the story of you seeing it through your eyes? Like because this is all abstract, right? This is at best a headline in a newspaper article for most people. For me, like when you say stuff to me about this, do you know what I think of? I think of milk cartons in the 80s. I think of True Detective. I think of that story of a girl abducted out of a Dallas Mavericks game and taken up to Oklahoma City and turned into sex slavery over like a 48-hour period. But beyond those, I don't have direct experience that I know of encountering human slavery in America. So what have you seen with your eyes with this, Tony?
Well, as I said, I've witnessed the experience of the before and after. You got to imagine, put yourself in the shoes if it was your child, your son, your daughter, and they were taken from you. I mean, it's unimaginable that this could happen. But if you talk about these 12 million children, that giant number, a third of those are from America or first world countries. It's happening here. That's why we made this film, to show that this is happening right in Los Angeles, in Miami, in New York City. And people just don't get it. So you have to go on that journey. And that's why we made it. And the film is very intense. I'm not going to tell you it's less. It'll keep you on the edge of your seat. but it'll grab you. But you've got to move people emotionally. If I asked you, Will, where were you, on 9/11, you'd probably tell me where you're sitting, who was there, what you saw, what the moments were. But if I ask you where you were on 8/11, you probably have no clue unless something really unique happened, because information without emotion is barely retained. But when you take information that's powerful and you bring powerful emotion to it, now people are moved. And movies are one of the few ways that we can do that in our society today, where we suspend everything else and we actually enter that experience. And so for me personally, it's like, I want people to have a direct experience, one that upsets them a little bit, enough that they want to do something about it. That's the only way things change. It doesn't change, as you said, when it's a headline or it's a number. We get numb to it all.
Right.
This film will make you not numb, but it'll also entertain the hell out of you. So if you go for the entertainment, you'll get that, but you'll get something deeper. You might be able to contribute to saving some lives. So that's what we're really hoping out of this.
And Mo, sort of the same question to you, because I know I've seen the interviews, and I know that your father had some experience in this in India. But I've seen you say this line in an interview as well, which made me think, if I'm there, I want to ask this follow-up, which you said, when you got interested in it, you had a friend that worked for the Labor Department, and he took you around, I believe it was maybe in California, and you got to see some things. And so my question for you is, what'd you see when you got sort of the tour of this happening in America?
Well, the first thing I did was he had me go down to downtown LA to the garment industry. And what was amazing is there you don't have bonded laborers, but I just walked into these fashion buildings and there was like 300 immigrants, right? And they're working and they see you and they get scared. And there's like a foreman and they sort of like shoo you away. And it was like out in the open about 10 years ago. Now it's gone more underground when I started looking into it. But what was most interesting about him, his name's Ruben Rosales, and he's the West Coast director of the Wage and Hour Division for the Labor Department. What he started doing was sending me cases. So week by week, he'd go, hey, you think this story, because originally my story was based on the Almonte sweatshop case, which took place in 1995. That's what inspired it. But he was like, no. This is happening right now. And he's like, look, there's a bunch of kids trapped in a garage in a house in the Bay Area, and they're making cabinets that end up at a big hotel chain. And every week he would be sending me over the course of my pre-production and filming. And 8 months before Hannah Dryer's New York Times expose, he called me up and he said, hey, it's coming out now. Like, it's gotten too bad. We've sent, we have a kid come across the border and we ask him where he's going. And he says, Uncle Juan in Alabama. And then all of a sudden we find out 6 months later, we've sent 800 people to Uncle Juan and he's not an uncle. And the mainstream media is now finally going to report on it. Like, he told me that. So he kind of kept me in the loop and has been a supporter. And I learned a lot through him. I didn't actually see the depths of what Tony has seen. And I think for me as a filmmaker, I did all the research. I went to downtown. I spoke to the survivors from the Almonte case. I went and sort of met with them. And then I said, I'm going to step back and I'm going to make Oliver Twist, or I'm going to make Slumdog Millionaire set in downtown LA. I don't want this to be so detailed in docudrama where I want it to be the essence of a child's spirit and how it's broken and how it's tested through this sort of like journey.
By the way, that Almonte case, to give you an idea, there were 70 kids underground for 7 years without ever seeing sunlight, working in a sweatshop, literally underground, hidden there. That's the kind of thing that's going on. And that's why when you see the film, you'll get where the essence of this film comes from.
7 years. Tony, you used a word, and I don't know if you're referencing this illegal market internationally or also how it might work here at home, but you used a word that I found fascinating. You used the word kingpin. So how does it work? I mean, to the extent that any three of us know, I'd love your both information on this. Like, I understand the role the cartels in Mexico play in providing the constant supply of labor and slavery. But once you're here in America, how does it work, this whole like illegal human trafficking mechanism?
Well, it depends. It's different on sexual slavery to some extent. They overlap as labor slavery, but there are networks. So they own huge organizations. I think maybe a better way to describe it is what the one solution might be, that I think, we're trying to get this film in front of many people in Congress, senators and leaders in that environment. Mo, maybe you can tell them a little bit about what happens with these subcontractors. I think that might really help people understand.
So, when I initially set out to make the film, it's funny, like I'm a director, I'm a filmmaker. I'm in no ways a politician or a lawmaker. And, like for me, I wanted to raise awareness and incite rage towards this issue. But I did have an idea, and I presented it to the Labor Department last year at a roundtable where I said, for 3 months out of college, I worked on Wall Street, and every single Wall Street trading office, every third office has a SEC compliance officer. Like you can't open up a Wall Street office and not have an SEC compliance officer. And that's all that needs to happen. If companies in America, irrespective of what sector and industry they were in, retail, fashion, it doesn't matter. If they were forced that every time they subcontracted to a third party, they had to have a compliance officer there that reported to them what was going on and guaranteed the conditions. And there were financial penalties for each crime against each person. I do believe that would be the first step. But again, how popular is that to say, hey, let's have every major corporation in America have this extra expense and have them monitored? But I don't think anything is going to be as powerful as that. There's tons of organizations, there's tons of people fighting for this, but this is step one as far as I'm concerned.
Because if you wipe out the financial incentive, you wipe out the purpose of it. If you wipe out the financial incentive,
right?
And there's some major companies. We're not here to label any companies, but we can name a dozen companies that are giant brands that you probably think of as very positive. That probably are, but they subcontract, and sometimes the subcontractors subcontract. So they don't even know what's going on. Some of them may not want to know. Some of them may actually care, but it's just so far down the line that this stuff, it's all about how to get it cheaper, faster, quicker. And we're all wearing something that has probably gone through a sweatshop, whether you know it or not, including some other higher end items. So it's like, if we could, get that done, that to me is a great long-term solution by taking out the source of the problem. But is there enough will? And what takes will is just like Harry Beecher Stowe, right? Getting enough people to know what's really going on, the people say enough of this.
That was going to be my follow-up. So what you're saying is the things that are produced out of these labor slavery shops, they're not just like, I don't know, corner market products at a swap meet in downtown LA. These are products, Mo, you mentioned a hotel chain. So, I mean, these are, and Tony mentions what I'm wearing now, perhaps, but these are products in our consumer bloodstream.
Yeah, that are made in America. Let's just be clear. It used to be about being made in India and China and stuff. When you see made in America, it isn't what it meant before, And I do think that I just don't see another way. I think regulation for the corporate, it as Tony said, it cuts off the demand. And as a result, the supply is going to go away. I think it's a more important, and I will tell you, for some, I made this film and everyone made it about the border and the border and the border. And look, here's what I'm going to say. I get that, but I don't understand how if today we just seal the border, is suddenly magically all those sweatshops going to open and all these children going to rise with halos above their head? Like, we still have a problem. We have a massive problem in this country, irrespective of any of these political things that we're talking about,
And the film is not political, right?
Yeah.
I'm an independent personally. I voted on both sides of the aisle. It's not about that. It's about our kids. That shouldn't be a left or right or a conservative or, Democratic approach to something, liberal approach to something. But unfortunately, during this time period, we've seen some significant pushback. Mo, maybe you can share some of the things that have happened from all the influencers. It blows our minds.
I don't know what to say. I've been a Democrat, Will, sort of my whole life. When Obama won, like I had tears in my eyes that we'd reached a place where a man of color like myself could be in the White House. But I am shocked. I'm confused. I'm frustrated. I'll tell you this, when I made the film last year, I couldn't get anyone in Hollywood initially to see it. And then when people did see it, it was like, hey, I got an agent, I got a management company. It was like, hey, we got other jobs for you. But no one was interested in this film. And I didn't initially understand why. And we had 100% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes when we first came out last year. We won a small film festival. Yeah, we had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. And after the film has been released, I'm just shocked. I've had influencers reach out to me saying they've been shadow banned. Some of our executive producers like Tony and like Luis Fonsi and other EPs have, you look at the engagement and they're not getting the engagement on the issue. And then You know, the thing, when I realized the moment of turning for me was, as a filmmaker, you know you've done a great job if you get an emotional response out of people. Because the truth is, most people are not emotionally open. And if you trigger them, they're either going to open towards it or they're going to shut down and hate you. And what was interesting for me is that when Roger Ebert came out and gave me 0 out of 4 stars, and the entire review was about the fact that, yes, and the entire review was, they got a Latino to do it. Variety did the same thing. They absolutely trashed the screenplay. They said the story is terrible. This is the tabloid version. Essentially, I was ridiculed because I didn't go into all the politics, and I decided to tell a dark fairy tale from this kid's point of view. I was ridiculed for having some members of my team being conservative, you know, like Vivek Ramaswamy, right, who joined our team as executive producer. But I have Linda Perry, who's Songwriters Hall of Fame, and she's a staunch liberal, and Michael Phillips, an Oscar-winning producer. It didn't matter. They immediately, and then I was attacked for not being a Latino. The characterizations were portrayed as tone deaf, irrespective of the fact that Alfredo Castro, who won Cannes, played El Jefe, and I had all these great Latin actors that informed the script and my crew. It didn't matter. And it's been truly shocking to me. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I made such an impact with the film that I pissed some people off. I just didn't understand why. And I don't know if this is true, but somebody said to me recently, he said, Mo, you're pointing at the biggest vulnerability of one of the major political parties in an election year. And I go, I don't see it that way. I see it as I'm showing you the story of what happens to this kid. And we've all agreed, both the left and the right have agreed that 320,000 children have gone missing. And both have agreed that they've been sold into trafficking and that there's an issue and so forth. So I don't know why we've been shut out, but there's been a lot of pushback. And I'm surprised, I'm hurt. I'm very lucky that I have Tony Robbins videos on YouTube to go watch when I'm depressed and I'm down, and they sort of get me out of it. And I get to get voice notes from him, and he puts me back, on track, because it's been difficult.
Well, it's crazy. Think about it. Your critics give it 100% initially. It's got a 92 score on Rotten Tomatoes from the audience, and a Variety gives it 0 out of 4 stars. I mean, it's just, how do you explain that? I mean, it's just crazy. So there's people that don't want it to be seen. So I don't think it's a big conspiracy thing. I think it's just, unfortunately, it's a tough time to have this message go out. But when are you going to give it out? You're going to wait to give this out some other time? Kids need our help right now. It's at the worst situation that we've seen in this country, probably ever at this stage. So because of the amount of migration that's come, illegal immigration that's come across that border and that's been forced by cartels, it's just nuts for us not to address it. So fortunately, the people that are seeing it are loving it, and we're hoping your audience will go see it and go from there.
Well, I'll say this in the end, Mo, and I don't want to make this overtly political as well. You brought up the border, Mo, and it's not a story of the border, and you still have a problem even if you do seal the border. I think my thought process on that would be, there's a famous saying that you don't start mopping the bathroom until you turn off the bathtub. If the bathtub is overflowing, you don't pull the mop out until you turn off the faucet. And maybe that can sound crude. What I would say is, if you're trying to solve human trafficking and slavery in America, you'd be playing whack-a-mole if you don't keep the continued flow from coming across that southern border. So they are somewhat one and the same. But I won't put you to a political debate on me that, and I don't know that you even want to. But my last question would be, Mo, what does that say to you? This is a story that's important, regardless of politics. And that's an interesting answer you got. Mo, you're shining a light on a vulnerability for one of the two biggest political parties at a time when they're trying to get elected. And you said, I've been a lifelong Democrat. What in the end is the takeaway for you on the inside of this experience?
Well, I'm now registered as an independent. So let me start with that. That's takeaway number one. So, I'm really sad, and I'll be honest with you, in the last couple weeks, I've been debating, am I supposed to do this? Should I get away from filmmaking? Is there another way I can make impact in the world? And it's been really heartbreaking for me, but I do believe in people. I do believe in humanity. And I think we are at one of the most divisive times in our history. And I do think there will be a correction. And I don't like to point fingers. What I would like to do is find a way to bring people together, you know, and I know Tony feels the same way. It's like, hey, let's sit down and have a conversation. Like, I don't want to sit here and say, you're the bad guy or you're the bad guy, because, you know, a problem starts. Let's go back to the root of the problem, because even now, just speaking to what you said about the border, I don't disagree with you. Listen, I'm an immigrant. I got an education. I spent a lot of money to get into this country and get my visa and get my passport. And I know a lot of immigrants, even a lot of Hispanic friends of mine, feel the same way. And I do think we need to have legal immigration in this country. And I do think there is a balance between helping people out who need asylum and letting people in. That balance has to be found. And I don't think it's going to come being angry. And so I did go through a period of tremendous anger in the last couple of weeks. And I sort of stepped back and said, I've got to lead with my heart and find a way to sort of be impactful in this area. And I think being impactful is saying, let's get together. Like, I would love to sit down with those reviewers and be like, hey man, I'm really sorry I offended you. Like, well, whatever. I know I'm not a Latino, but my father worked in a sweatshop. And the truth is, I feel that our experiences and not our skin color is what defines us. You know, I would love to be able to have those conversations.
And in the end, this film, again, I want to echo it for your audience. This film is not political. This is a film just about our kids. And sometimes we just got to come together and we all agree on, like, you know, people disagree on all kinds of things. They disagree about guns, but we all agree when we want our kids protected. You know what I mean? Some people think you should guns for it, some people not. We can pick any issue, but there's something in common. And we somehow as a society have pushed each other apart. And I think, you know, it's been a multitude of things. Social media, all kinds of things have done it. But we as human beings just have to make some new choices and say, in order to solve problems, we got to just come back and be human with each other and say, what do we care about together? How to solve it? We may have different points of view, but let's focus on and commit to solving it. And this film hopefully will knock your socks off, entertain you. It's a wild ride, but also it'll educate you without you knowing you're being educated. It'll awaken you. And that's what we hope people will experience. So it's in the movie theaters now, and it comes out on video on demand. When does that happen, Mo?
Yeah, so the video on demand is on the 27th. It'll be on Amazon, and we'll be promoting that and stuff. But Will, I want to leave you with one thing. This is when I knew, because, you know, as a filmmaker, when you make a film, you want to know whether it's impactful or not, and you're not sort of sure. And I was in Mexico City finishing the movie, and I was in bed at night, and a mutual friend of mine and Tony's, I'd never met Tony, sent me a video that Tony had made for me after he watched the film, where he literally was like, Mo, I have tears in my eyes. And he was like, I'm going to support you. And I literally fell out of bed and I wept, because I said, you know what? I know I made an impact, because I impacted one of the people that impacted me. And not only that, somebody that impacts millions of people. That was more valuable to me than anything. And that was one of the greatest moments of my life, you know?
Well, feel heartened, and everybody go to the theaters, be entertained by City of Dreams. You didn't stutter, you didn't sound drunk. Mo's finishing a 5-day water fast, which is shocking to me, but he gave a great interview here. Mo Ramchandani, the writer and director of City of Dreams, and of course, executive producer of City of Dreams, New York Times, #1 best-selling author many times over, life and business strategist, and badass Tony Robbins. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us, Will. Take good care of yourself.
There you go. There's Tony Robbins and Mo Ramchandani. Go check out City of Dreams. As it turns out, reports are that Kash Patel's team did not communicate to Tinfoil Pat that they were out today, so he may survive punishment. But some of you have jumped in the comments section on YouTube and on Facebook and given me some suggestions for our ongoing, our newfound dedication to on-air accountability. Irene Deely says on YouTube, punishment, eat a ghost pepper on air. Well, the problem with that, Irene, and I'm up for that, is that could inhibit performance of that day's show. I think that one could really hurt. But E. Curtis 1010 says, do what you used to do on your ESPN radio show, Will, during March Madness. Make them eat something gross. I like that.
Nope.
I like that. Doesn't have to be a ghost pepper. Why, two-a-days? Why?
I don't want to throw up on air. That's not a good look. I'll end up on Barstool or something.
It is a good look. You know, it's fun. You know, it could be like gefilte fish or a spoonful of wasabi.
We used to do pie to the face at a dance show on air.
What about like push-ups? Something that's good for you.
No, not push-ups.
No.
Not push-ups. Craig Tucson says on YouTube, Hillary is just being, well, deplorable. Very good, Craig. Keith Mick says, Hillary did not incite attacks on Trump. Politically, one is allowed to call out your political foes on their actions. Keith, of course you can call out your political foes. Don't you? The point is whether or not there is any connection to the truth and whether or not you're engaging in a hyperbole that leads, not even crazy people, in some instances, previously rational people to a hysteria. And the constant invocation of Trump, he's a threat to our soul. He's a threat to our democracy. He's a would-be dictator. He's a demagogue. On and on and on. He's literally Hitler. Okay? And by the way, and the evidence being in that there are people who have been motivated by words like this. There's a difference in criticizing the policies and the philosophies of your political opponent. Shannon Horton says, Hillary should be held accountable for her actions. Nothing ever happened to her. That's a crime in itself. And Chief Walk-On says, Will, you have a plethora of stoned TDS responders in the thread. Think you can bring any sanity to them? Well, Chief, that's the goal of having an interaction, I don't, not only do I not begrudge, I welcome in those who disagree with me into the comment section, onto the show. We'll bring people on the show that disagree with me, and we'll see. We'll see which ideas, and through a conflict, a clash of ideas are superior. And not just a superiority like I win, you lose, but maybe we all get better too. And the blood-stoned emperor says, isn't it ironic the one calling for violence is the one getting the assassin attempts? Isn't it ironic the one calling for violence is the one getting the assassin attempts? It is ironic and makes you question whether or not he is the one calling for violence. I'd love that example. If you can give me those examples or more suggestions of punishment, drop into the comments. We'll bring you back tomorrow here on The Will Cain Show at 12 o'clock Eastern Time on YouTube and on Facebook. Join us live or always join us after the fact by subscribing on YouTube, subscribing on Spotify, or subscribing on Apple. I will see you again next time.